Imagine a place where the boundaries of age, industry, background, and culture melt away, replaced by a shared desire to explore the depths of our collective experiences. Here, on the open, shaded porch, amidst an atmosphere of serenity and tranquility, leaders from all walks of life gather to share their stories, the stories that shape their very beings and doings. This is the Knowledge Mindfulness Porch with Laila Marouf.
I'm back on the porch with Pádraig Ó, who has founded numerous successful companies across publishing, music, aircraft maintenance, outsourcing, home care, and internet marketing. He was even named the EY Irish Entrepreneur of the Year. Pádraig, you've worked with so many different people in various industries. I would love to get your thoughts on talent acquisition and retention. What kind of advice would you give an entrepreneur who's starting a company to attract and retain talent?
When I created the airline, most important thing was, and actually you have it in the book as well, I think, you talk about culture. And you have it there that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture is about people. In my view, people grow, companies don't grow. So the best leaders create the environment within which their people can grow. And actually, very often those people can develop better and are more happier and more holistic in what they do in an open, trusting culture where the employee is valued, their opinions are sought, their knowledge is listened to and actually acted upon when and where necessary. They're the companies that are going to attract most employees. Just getting back to what I said earlier, when I started growing the airline, about 1.5% of people who applied to work with us got a job with us. There were a couple of reasons for that. It was harder to get into our little airline than it was into Harvard University. And the reasons for that, quite frankly, fundamentally was the culture. People wanted to be in this culture because they saw that, like I had a guy, chief engineer, he worked with Aer Lingus, a very large airline, and he was about 61, 62 years of age. And he came working with me for about 3 years. And then he was leaving, he was retiring. And as we do in Ireland, we go to the pub for a few pints afterwards of Guinness. And I'll never forget, Tom Colgan was his name, great guy, big man. He put his hand around me. And he had a pint of Guinness in the other hand. And he says, Pádraig, I want to tell you this. I worked for 35, 36 years in Aer Lingus, a big airline. And we were fixing airplanes. You know, when I came working with you in your little airline, I was not fixing airplanes, I was building an airline.
You just hit it to the heart. Yes, that's what it's all about. How do you make them feel they belong to a bigger purpose? That, you know, that shared vision that they're all enthusiastic about. But that's hard work. And I think maybe the biggest hurdle I see now is, how do you change mindsets? You know, how do you change the way that CEOs, the board, kind of, I don't want to say the older generation, but I want to say a certain way of thinking, the school of thinking that needs to be reconfigured in many ways for that to happen slowly but surely. But I think we kind of answered that a while ago by the push from, you know, it's not top down, it's down up now from the employees, from all that whether they want it or not, there have to be a change, there have to be a shift. And it is hopefully taking place, definitely. But that brings me also to the entrepreneur, the 10-year-old boy that was really, you know, if we go back in time for it, I want you to take our listeners to the 10-year-old boy who was on the beach, just picking on parawickle, right? And then go and sell it. Do you think this is something that you are born with?
Back to when I was 10 years of age, you see the seashore behind me here. That's exactly where I was when I was picking these little shellfish and selling them on the market. Because my background, my parents were very working class. They really didn't have an education. But they had two really important things that they shared with us. One was values, and integrity was fundamental to that, and respect. And the other one was not to be afraid to work hard. Don't rely on the state. Don't expect to be carried around the place. You gotta create your own word. You gotta stand up and be counted. That's me as a 10-year-old. I grew up speaking Gaelic, not English, so English is my second language. I used to be a mathematics teacher for a while, and I used to do the math in my head in Gaelic, and then I had to translate it into English in order to explain it to the students. But in relation to entrepreneurs, you asked a great question. Are entrepreneurs born, or can you create entrepreneurs? I actually think you can create them, believe it or not. I actually believe, you mentioned the term creativity. I actually think every single person can be deep inside us or not too deep inside us, but we do have a good spot for creativity. I believe in the human being every single one of us. We have a gem inside there, and let's call it the creative gem. Probably sometimes, though, we don't access it because, one, we don't think it's there. Secondly, we think it's there, we're afraid to access it in case what might happen. And thirdly, I don't think we get the proper, and use our external support to allow us to develop the internal potential and possibilities that are in there. There's a girl who worked with me. She gave me a present. She was leaving. She started right after college. This is a leopard jumping forward. It's a lovely piece of artwork. And what it says, when everything seems to be going against you, remember, the airplane takes off against the wind, not with it.
Wow, that is powerful.
The person who said that quote was Henry Ford. She gave me that over 20 years ago. My wife and I were at her wedding a good few years ago. And a wonderful, wonderful employee. But she had to leave. Her father wasn't well, and they lived in another part of Ireland, and they had a business. So she went back to that. And it's really, really important for us to realize, yes, and I was in the aviation. That's why she picked that, because I was in an airline business. That life sucks. Life can be tough. But we have got this, all of us have it, this ability to stand up and be counted. But sometimes we're afraid to do so. We don't think we have it. We think that there's no burning light in there. But there is for all of us. I feel very passionate about the power and potential of good over evil and good people. And quite frankly, there are people in the world who are not necessarily that good, who've got different agendas. But I believe in the collective good, and I always will. I don't care how often the wind is blowing against me. I'm going to keep going.
That is really powerful. I want to stop on a sentence you just shared with us that you learned from your parents, which is about working hard. Today's youth, we hear a lot the statements, you need to work smart but not hard. So what do you think of that? What advice would you give our youth who are saying more and more, no, we don't need to work hard, we need to work smart?
Fundamentally, I'll be honest, Laila, I would agree with it. But in my parents' time, in the 60s and 70s and so on, when you didn't have computers or mobile phones and so on, people had to work hard. There was much less opportunity of just working smart, much less opportunity. There are greater opportunities now and greater flexibility. So I would strongly agree with, yes, working smart, but not being afraid to work hard. I would not throw the baby out with the bathwater in relation to now being afraid or not working hard. And that's very, very important. And I think it's really important for you as a person that you can build yourself up in a level of confidence and say, I'm not going to give in. I think, Laila, one of the biggest challenges youth have now, and CEOs have, and you mentioned at the very beginning of this podcast, is burnout. And CEOs not spending the 14, 15, 20 years as CEOs. Now they're spending 5, 6, 7 years as CEOs. Hugely interesting statistics. And some of them I've never heard of before. So I value that knowledge. But the main issue, quite frankly, is it's back to the mindfulness side of it. And it's back to saying, okay, what do I need? What's the purpose of this? And a lot of them, I would argue, are running very, very fast in a treadmill, but staying in the same place.
Could we say we need to be smart about where we put our time, energy, and money? And how do we reach that kind of intelligence? Because I feel personally, even in the knowledge mindfulness framework, that again, we need to rethink what intelligence, what being smart means in today's world. And how do we teach the youth, but without using the teach? How do we create environments that can really bring that kind of knowledge maturity that can help the youth evolve in a way to navigate today's world? And I think this comes to what you were saying. We never learned how to tap into our inner dimensions in many, forms. We didn't learn in schools. We didn't learn maybe from books till recently. But I think that kind of knowledge and that kind of understanding and sense-making of what's going in with what's going out kind of elevates that working smart. And when do we work hard and when do we need to work smart? When do we need to work hard? It's the timing also of when to put it into place. So yes, I think I agree with you that there's a lot to be done in terms of those learnings. But again, we always come to that question of how do we help our younger generation? What are the facilitators that we can put in place, being kind of in another stage in life where we can extend our arm to them and say, we are here, we can, support you, we can guide. How can we do that? What roles do you think we can play to create those environments?
That's a big question. One is how we lead, because young people need role models. We just need to make sure that they've got good, healthy, positive, robust role models. The second thing that's really important, certainly I haven't been good at doing this, but teaching resilience, that young people can develop the tools and skills and processes of being resilient. And that's really, really important. And the third one is their awareness of knowledge and the factors that contribute to their sense of knowledge that helps them in making decisions. And what type of knowledge do they require in order to make decisions? Where do they get that knowledge? Is this innate knowledge, or where does it come from? And how can I trust that knowledge to help me make a decision? When they start questioning that about their own knowledge and getting back to the waltz and the dance with their dancing partner, the external knowledge, and where's the little bit of an overlap, That's, in my view, going to help them create clarity around their purpose. And what's their one sentence? The world with them versus the world without them. And it's not necessarily what I think as a parent or anybody thinks as a parent. I think it's important that they can actually go and take out the boat and sail their own seas in the way that they want to do it. But that they do this and they take responsibility based on what is to them sound good knowledge in relation to the direction they want to go in. There's a poem. It's by a Nobel Prize winner from Ireland called Seamus Heaney. He passed away a couple of years ago. I had the huge privilege of meeting him just once. He wrote this poem to his wife. They were not long married, and I suppose like me and maybe a lot of us, when you're getting to know somebody and you haven't been living with them or so for long, there can be rough edges at times. So this is a poem by Seamus Heaney, but it's kind of related to what you're saying or the question you asked, Laila. Here it is. Masons, when they start upon a building, they're careful to test out the scaffolding. Make sure that the planks won't slip at busy points. Secure on ladders, tighten bolted joints. And yet, all this comes down when the job is done, showing off walls of sure and solid stone. So if, my dear, there sometimes seems to be old bridges breaking between you and me, never fear. We may let the scaffolds fall, confident that we've built our wall.
I have to clap because this is, wow, that is an amazing, amazing poem. In simple English, the foundation that you advise couples to build before everything else is what?
It's a great question. It starts off and ends up with that 4-letter word, love.
I think that's the most solid foundation. I feel personally, when you have that foundation, you can fall at it at any time and it can protect you. You can bounce back from it, right? But if you don't have that, then what do you have? What is the pad that's going to protect you? Like you said, I mean, life, there is that friction that happens in life, and that's normal. And I think even sometimes it's healthy, because I think with a bit of friction, this is where we expand. We stretch our comfort zones as human beings and learn how to compromise. Learn where's the middle point. Learn to create that space of we and not me. And I think it's just powerful, this poem, this, understanding, because again, when it comes to learnings and support and guidance, I always kind of want to really share with my children so much of those values that really matter, that kind of, they I don't know, I don't want to say need to remember, but to have it kind of inside their minds and the hearts that these are foundational. These are things, there's no compromise there when we have those foundations. So yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing. It's just an amazing, amazing poem. Let's go back to when you were, I think I read somewhere that you served on many, many boards, many prestigious boards. I'd love to ask you, what do you think you as Pádraig could, added to these organizations, and what did you take from those experiences?
First answer is simple for me. I don't know what I added, if anything. I definitely would be not the normal straitjacket, pinstripe suit director. I'm very much outside of the box thinking and challenging and supporting. I'm very people focused rather than project focused. I believe in the collective rather than the individual. I very strongly believe in respect and in particular gratefulness. So there would be some of the values that I would have tried to bring to boards. There were a few times, Laila, when one in particular, that I was asked to be the chairman of quite a large board. And I kind of reluctantly went in there, and I realized that the values that was on the culture was very different to my values. And I think that's a big area where we all end up in a stressful situation, where your values are different to an environment you find yourself in or somebody you find in their company. And when your values are aligned with another person or another company, you really enjoy their company and it flowers you as a person, and you can, wow, the world is a great place. And what I've done in that situation, and it's quite public, I resigned from the board because I realized and felt I'm not able to change this. The world with me versus the world without me in this situation wasn't going to make any difference. And probably the most important thing we have in life, like how financially wealthy we are otherwise, is time. And the most important thing about time is the people you spend that time with.
Yes, so, very, very true. Very true.
So I decided, Laila, to step away from that board because the time I would put into it would not give me enjoyment, satisfaction, or achieve the goals in a broader sense that I believe they needed to achieve. So I walked away from it. So and I'm not afraid of doing that. I will do that. And then what actually happens, by coincidence, you can call it, or by chance, if there's such a thing, by coincidence or chance, you actually end up in the environment or in the company of people who invigorate you, who you really enjoy, who lifts you up by just a text message or seeing them or talking to them, and all of a sudden, wow, it sparks off. It lifts you up as something there. You know what it is, but there's something very, very powerful in that interaction. And the fact that I'm pretty clear because I've gone through the process of, let's call it, no, it's not gone through, that's wrong. Because you never go through the process. But I'm going through the process and have been going through the process of what knowledge is in there? Who am I as a person? How do I interpret the world? What plates are spinning around in my head? Why do I act the way I act at different times? Why do I respond like I respond? And that helps to create clarity. And the most important word about clarity, I think, is simplicity. Keep it as simple as you possibly can. Keep your life as simple as you can. Don't complicate it. And as you know, life is a journey. There are different times where we fall into potholes. Things happen that you don't think about, like August the 2nd, 1990. Things happen. And you say, or being stuck in Boston during COVID. Now what am I going to do? Where am I going to go from here? And you start digging into yourself and, yeah, there's an opportunity here. I can go and do this. I can go and do that. Rather than one feeling sorry for myself, what's terrible. But you know what also happens? You end up attracting people to you that are like-minded people. that help strengthen that fire in the belly that sometimes we think it's gone. So I don't know if that's your question.
I think you answered it very well, because it really shows how much those organizations have lost a knowledge mindful leader like you, who questions, who thinks out of the box, who is human centered, who really has strong values that can add to their thinking and their way of seeing the world and making decisions and all that. And I feel the world needs more like you, more and more as we're heading forward. And I think this is where my heart kind of falls into this strategy, or this way of how do we really build competencies that would lead more and more entrepreneurs and youth into this pathway of questioning, of a higher knowledge maturity, where they do tap through themselves, through reflections, through asking tough questions, and not only thinking that knowledge is only, or information comes from here. It comes from also our heart. It comes from our souls, and how, this interconnections all serves us if we know how to manage it right together. And if we understand that, I think we can tango into this life in a much better way. I can't thank you enough, but I want you to leave our younger entrepreneurs with words of wisdom. So I keep the floor to you. What words of wisdom would you leave them with?
Start an internal conversation about who you are, your values, your beliefs. Be brave and go out into the world and challenge yourself and challenge the world, but never lose your values and beliefs as a person, because that's your anchor, that's your foundation. And don't be afraid to lose or to fail. I failed more times than I succeeded. But also, when one fails, don't feel sorry for yourself. Get back up on the horse and go again, and give life the best shot you can, because you deserve it and the world deserves it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pádraig.
Wow, it's a real privilege, Laila. It's a really privilege, and hopefully we'll connect again sometime in London or someplace else, please God.
Definitely. And that concludes this week's Knowledge Mindfulness Porch. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss any new episode. If you have a moment, we would greatly appreciate if you could leave us a review, helping other amazing individuals like yourself discover us. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
You have been listening to the Knowledge Mindfulness Porch with Laila Marouf. If you want to join the movement of knowledge mindfulness and shape the world of tomorrow, go to drlailamarouf.com. The Knowledge Mindfulness Porch is a production of Forbes Books.